Well, hey there, everybody. We're in week one. So welcome to week one. We're going to get ourselves out of the gate for our Wholism course. Um, so our first order of business, I think, is to start reading for this week. We're going to step into this week, I feel like, pretty lightly relative to how we'll gain some momentum next week in week two, and certainly in week three, as we really get into the thick of what holism means. But what I'm hoping to do this week is to set a foundation for discussing some foundational principles that we can build on so that we can more fully understand what wholeness means. So the way the course is set up, and this is a little different from in the past, I redesigned it a little bit for this semester, is we're going to not talk explicitly about holism on week one. We're going to kind of introduce some other concepts that build up to what that looks like, and that'll be really a deep dive into that in week three. And so I'm hoping to do some little bit of set the table, as they say, this week. And we're going to start off with Chronically American and looking at the introductory section of Chronically American in the first three chapters. So up through chapter 3, which takes us to about almost the first 50 pages or so of the book, a little bit shy of that 50 pages. So the book itself is not long. In total, as you can see, it's only, about 76 pages long in total for the book. So the first two books that we're reading in length are not that great, but they are a bit dense. And the concepts are a little dense. And sometimes that's how people describe my writing, is that it's a little bit dense. And so hopefully it'll make sense. It might take some unpacking. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not a good thing, but either way, it is what it is, I guess. So Chronically American, okay, just as by way of background, was written as initially as an explanatory model for why we as Americans experience so much chronic illness. And in 2019, I went on sabbatical to write this book, and my sabbatical proposal was really to just write the first, basically the first 3 chapters and somewhat of chapter 4. But as the sabbatical went on, and as I was writing, it became very clear that a 5th chapter needed to be written. And that what it seemed like to me was that I was able to explain, and this will make sense as you start reading, that being American has a massive downside relative to our health, particularly if we look at chronic illness by way of chronic stress. So that's the underlying premise of the book, is that simply being, and this is what is challenged in the book as far as questions go throughout the book, is that does simply being American set us up for chronic stress, which then leads to chronic illness, and then a cascade of all other kinds of things because of the chronic illness. And that seemed like a great academic exercise at the beginning. But then as I was writing, I guess maybe the optimist in me, I don't know what it was, said I cannot leave a book to just that, of just saying, well, just being American leads us to our, just as an explanatory model for our issues. So part of chapter 4 and then all of chapter 5 came into play with that. And I think it helps to round out the book nicely, although, as you'll find out from reading it, it needed more. There was more to be said after finishing Chronically American. And then that's where Posturing Towards Wholeness came. And the intent was always to write the follow-up book, and that happened in 2023. So just by way of background information, what I'm hoping to do in this first week of the Wholism course is to set some foundational principles by looking at where we have been in the past and and perhaps understanding a little bit more about ourselves. And I think that was my approach to this book, is like, okay, hey, we're pretty tough on ourselves, by saying, that I'm not able to do this and, this or that, or achieve these things, or, maybe if we are achieving things, that we maybe put them of more importance than they actually are. And why is that? And so that's where this book starts, is trying to understand how we think as Americans. And so our past and present reality is where we start in chapter 1. Chapter 2 is really looking at chronic stress a bit in a deeper dive. And then a look back is chapter 3. So looking at history, and we're going to dive into some social science concepts that take a little bit of unpacking and maybe a bit of reading, and then, I might have to reread that again to understand it, like concepts like modernity, and certainly individualism, socio-evaluative threat, and some of these other things that help explain these concepts, that help explain why we feel as we do. And so that's where we're going with this in the first week. And so those concepts of chronicity, and specifically chronicity of modernity. So this means essentially our way of life as Americans leads to some kind of experience of chronic something. Most of the time it's chronic stress, chronic illness. But our modern way of living, which is to say modernity, leads to a broad concept of chronic stuff, referred to as chronicity by social scientists. So tying them together, the chronicity of modernity helps, if we can wrap our heads around that concept, it helps us to understand how we got ourselves in a bit of a mess as far as health goes. And I focus the writing on the United States because, of course, that's what I'm most familiar with. But I think it's probably fair to say the Western world, and maybe now the rest of the world too, because of the influence that the West has, and the affluence and influence that the West has, and through our globalization that has taken place over the last 60 years or so, for sure, that has pushed these notions and concepts of the way of life of the West into the rest of the folks on Earth. So we're going to look at how connected we are as we keep moving through this, and hopefully realize that we are. And this kind of gets into week 2. Ideas, but taking all of those concepts and looking at how connected we are with the rest of the world and what that means, and how that affects our health, is a good place for us to start. So as we're going through this, I think it's good to keep in mind, how does this, as you're reading through this, how does this affect my personal health and well-being, these concepts we're talking about? How might this have an influence on how I interact with others if I'm helping others with their personal health and well-being? And also, what does this mean from a leadership side for me? Okay, so leadership, I think, is a really important, as far as defining what leadership means. And it doesn't matter what program you're in, the Leadership and Wellbeing Graduate Certificate Program or the Integrative Health and Wellness Master's Program. Either way, these concepts work in both. So I will talk about them as it doesn't matter what program you're in, because both, everybody has to deal with their health and wellness. Everybody has relationships with others, whether it's personal at home or through work, or maybe it's in your professional life that works with others, that has an influence. This will make more sense as you read the material, but influences others' health. And then also in our leadership, and leadership doesn't have to be like the manager of 150 people type leadership. It can be the leadership that you explicitly or implicitly give to others just by your actions, your daily, everyday actions. And that can be at home, it can be at work, regardless of job and occupation. So I think the concepts work either ways. But as you read through these, think about that. Think about how these concepts work in my leadership, defining your leadership as my influence on others and my ability to, or my inability to lead others or to influence others positively or negatively, but then also on my personal well-being and the well-being of others that I'm around in my personal life and professional life. So that's kind of it there in a nutshell. So as far as assignments go for this week, it is you'll be putting up your first post, your first discussion post. Again, it's a video post, 3 to 5 minutes or so long, and then writing a reflection paper. Both of the details of that are described on the Blue Line site, but also in the syllabus. And I provide the hard copy syllabus on the Blue Line site if you like to look at the hard copy version of it, or if either way, everything that's in the hard copy version is on the Blue Line site also. But sometimes people like to have it laid out in the Word format of the standard syllabus. So either way works. But the details of the assignment of those assignments are laid out in there, so you can read through those. But if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. All right, so that's our week 1. I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone has to say on your video, and what your thoughts are on the readings. So I look forward to our first Zoom session, and maybe we can do a further discussion as far as the concepts there. Okay, so that's it. Good luck with the first week. Keep me posted if you need anything, and I will see you soon. Thanks.